Hi folks, what we're going to be designing here today is the top half of the basketball game, just to help you learn how to use Tinkercad and build those skills up for projects that we're going to be doing. So first of all, if you make sure you're logged into Tinkercad, make sure you already should have joined the class by this point, but if not, talk to your teacher. And we're going to create a new design. So click that. And when this opens up, it's going to have some crazy name. And what we want to do here is change that name. I would do that every time when you first go in and call it something logical about what you're actually making. So we're making a basketball subassembly. I'm going to call it basketball subassembly, and I can click out in no man's land and it'll take that. So a few things that I would do every single time when you're just getting started, that's one of them. The second thing would be, this is in millimeters, in metric. I want to change this to inches. So I'm going to go to Edit Grid, change this down to inches, and I'm going to update the grid. Two other things I would recommend here. Ruler. Top right corner, I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to drop it on the corner of my work plane. And the last thing here, this bottom button in the row is switch to flat view or orthographic view. Click on that. Here in a bit you'll see why that is going to be beneficial to us, but I would honestly recommend doing that anytime you're in there. So now we're going to go ahead and actually start drawing. So let's take a quick look at the drawing. What we're going to do is we're going to draw the backboard and the hoop, and at the moment I like to start with the backboard, so there's only a few things we need to know at the moment. When we make this, our dimensions are going to be 3/4 by 4 by 5 3/4. So we'll want to set it up that way. So I'm going to jump back to my basketball subassembly. That backboard is nothing more than a box. So these primitives here, basic shapes, I'm going to drag out a box. And because I have the ruler here, I can see my dimensions. Now, it's kind of hard to tell. I can tell the length across the front is easy. It's hard to tell which one of these is height and which one of these is depth. Here's a simple solution. I'm going to go to my view cube here, and I'm going to click on the top left corner. And the reason I'm going top left is because, well, one second, I'll show you. If I go top left, I can see all three of these dimensions easily, and I can tell which one's height and which one's depth and which one's my length. If I were to go to the top right corner, this is partially covered up. So that's the only reason I'm doing the top left corner here. Sometimes, depending on how you're zoomed in and your screen size and those type of things, you might not see dimensions in the exact order that I have mine. So please watch very carefully on where those arrows here, the extension lines and dimension lines are pointing to. So first of all, our depth is 3/4. Tinkercad will not accept a fraction, so I have to go decimal. So I'm going to do 0.75 and just hit enter to accept it. Our length was 5 3/4, so 5.75 and enter to accept it. Now this is sliding off the screen. I can just grab it and drag it over, or I could use the arrow keys to move that over. And then our height. Our height here is going to be 4, so just plain old 4, enter. And this 0, we don't want to do anything with that, but just to show you what it does, that will move me off of my work plane. And if something ever gets moved around off the work plane and you don't want it, the easy way to do this is if I hit the letter D, it'll drop it back to the work plane. You got to see that here in just a little bit. So here's the basic backboard of our game. We need to have the hole that goes down to the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this around. I'll just drag the view cube so I can see the bottom here. And if you click on the bottom, just actually click where you see that blue box showing up, it's going to go to a flat view where I can see the bottom perfectly. Now here's why I like to go to orthographic. If I were to switch to perspective, and you don't need to do this, but when I go into these views, and funny enough, this bottom's going to make me into a liar, but normally you can see a little bit of the height too, and it kind of makes some of the parts look funny. So that flat view really will make life easier. I need drill hole. Well, I don't have a drill in this program, so what we need is to bring out a cylinder, and I'm going to place it somewhere roughly in the center of my backboard here. Anytime you're using something round, cylindrical, spherical, make sure you come in to the shape box and take the sides and run them clear up as high as they'll go. If I don't do that, what you were seeing here is it was set to 12 or 20 rather, and you can absolutely see all the little flat sides. And if we were to 3D print this or laser cut this, you will see those little flat lines. So when we run this clear up to 64, it'll come out looking round and smooth. And just a note, with the Chromebooks, the easiest way to zoom in and out without a mouse is to use the zoom in and out tools, or this will zoom to a selected shape, or if I have nothing selected and I hit that button, it'll zoom to show everything. With the mouse, I can roll the mouse wheel and it zooms in and out. So we need to set the size of our circle. In higher level Autodesk programs, which Tinkercad is made by Autodesk, I could just set the diameter. Tinkercad does not have a diameter tool, so what we're going to do is just change basically our X and Y coordinates here to set our diameter. The hole was 3/8 of an inch. That equates to 0.375. Enter. It's going to go to an ellipse here for a second, and that's an oval shape. That's fine. Go to the top one, 0.375. Enter. Now we have a circle. Only other thing I need to do, and I'm going to tip this forward a little so you can see what's going on here, but our height for this is 1 inch. Remember, we had a 1/2 inch deep hole, so I'm going to do 0.5 there. When I hit enter, it should drop that height down. And again, if for some reason it gets messed up and moves up or down, you got the wrong dimension here, and you can always undo and go back and adjust things. So now what we need to do is we need to center this across the backboard. To do that, I can do a number of things. I can just left click and drag a box over these things. Even if it just touches both things, it'll work. Another option here is I can do Control A. Control A selects everything. Or I can click one thing, hold Shift down, and select the other. Anyway about it, make sure you have both things selected. Up here in the upper right, we have the Align tool. You can click the button or you can hit L. And these black dots show up. And if I mouse over them, you can see exactly what's going to happen. So anytime if you're not sure which one you're trying to click, mouse over it and see where it's going to put things and see if that's what you want. So I want this hole to be right smack in the center of this whole thing. Simple enough. I'm going to hit the middle dot here. I'm going to hit the middle dot that's going vertical, and there we have it. So now that's right smack in the center. I don't have to measure 2 7/8 or anything else. Right now with that, and I'm going to click out of this just so I can show you, you have the whole shape. The cylinders, any shape that has a gray with the lines is a hole. We have that setting inside of the solid. It did not cut. I need to select everything again. And we have a group tool up here. You can click the button or you can do Control G. But when I click that, and if I rotate it a bit here, you can see now it actually cut that hole out. So anytime you want to cut a hole in something, that's what you have to do. You have to take a hole shape, put it inside or touching a solid, and group them, and it will cut. I can make any shape into a hole, just to show you quickly. quickly. We don't need the sphere for anything. It's just in the shape box. I can make it a hole. I can make it a solid. That goes for anything in Tinkercad. So just so you're aware. And yeah, I click the shape color. I can change colors, but delete this out. Okay, that's our backboard. Now we need to make the hoop. So we're gonna come on over here. I'm gonna go to my drawing, and what I want here, my hoop is 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches and a 1/2 inch tall. However, it's not square. It's not a perfect square. It's not a perfect circle. It's kind of a combination of both. So if they don't have this shape in Tinkercad, I have to actually go and make it. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. To start out, I'm going to bring in a box and put it in front of my backboard. The backboard you can move out of the way if you'd like. If on the small screens of the Chromebook, sometimes I like to change color of things just so it's a little easier to see what's going on, a little more contrast. But again, on here, our width of this thing, length of it, is going to be 2.5. Our height was a 1/2 inch, or 0.5. And because that thing is not a complete square, I'm not going to do 2.5 for my depth. I'm going to do half of that. I'm going to do 1 1/4 or 1.25. And I just make sure that you have these set correctly. It should kind of resemble a domino laying on its side. It should be long. It should be half as deep as it is long. And it should be a 1/2 inch tall. If you need to rearrange those numbers, please make sure it comes out like this. So now that I have that, I need to put the front half of this in. So we're going to use a cylinder. We want the solid. And again, if I grab the wrong one, I can make it a solid. And as always, because it's round, I'm going to take my sides and run it clear up, not down. There we go. And I can put that up if I want to get it out of the way. So I can still see here which direction's which, my height, and then my length and width, or X and Y, and height would be my Z axis here. So I'm going to set this to a height of a 1/2 inch or 0.5. Enter. These weird little marks here, that's fine. It just shows their exact same height and they're kind of competing for color. And again, because I do not have a diameter tool, I have to set these two to the same number, and that 0 I want to leave it be. So this is a 2.5 inch circle. So click that again, 2.5, enter. This one, 2.5, enter. And you should have a 1/2 inch tall circle that is 2.5 inches in diameter. So at this point, what we need to do is select both things, and I went to the top view, just easier to look down on it. I need to align these, and I want it centered this way so it matches up. I do not want to center it this way because that doesn't at all look like what I want. I'm going to move this to the back. And really, the reason I'm doing that is because the flat side here is going to attach to the backboard. Otherwise, if I move that to the front, I would have to turn this completely around after I'm done. So I'm going to keep that in the back, and I'm going to group these two objects. And there is our basketball shape, hoop shape. Now we need to cut that hole in the center. So I'm going to bring out the hole shaped cylinder. Cylinder shaped hole. And I'm going to take the sides clear up because it's round. And I need to set my sizes. Now, again, I can't really tell which one's which here, so I'm going to go to that top left corner. Now I can see that's my height. This is, my Z, my X, and my Y. This is going to be a hole that cuts completely through this thing. So the fact that it's 1 inch tall doesn't matter. I could change it to a 1/2 inch, but I could also change it to 100 inches and it's still going to cut straight through it, so it doesn't really matter. But the hole in here is 1.5 inches diameter. So my X, my Y, do 1.5, enter. My X, 1.5, enter. And if I go to my top view, there we have our hole. We just need to place it. And you can probably guess here. So I have the hole selected. I'm just going to hold shift down. I'm going to click on the green part. So I have the solid selected. When I have both, the align tool again, and we want this right in the center, so I'll click the center button this way, the center button this way, and I'm going to go ahead and group these. And if I go back to a different view, we can see I have both parts all set up. So I have the hole down in here, I have my hoop all made and set up. Now we just need to attach the two parts together. So to do this, once again, we're going to select both. I could do this, I could do Control A because everything here is getting selected. And once again, the align tool is a wonderful tool. We're going to be using that. And actually, before I do that, let me back up. Workplanes are also a wonderful tool. Here's how we can connect two things and make sure they're absolutely connected without worrying that there's any microscopic gap in between them. We're going to go to workplane or hit W on your keyboard. You'll see it follow the mouse. So I clicked on it and let go. I don't click and hold. I'm going to put this on the backboard. I'm just going to click on there, and my workplane went from the ground here up to the backboard. So what that allows for us is if I were to bring out shapes, it would put it on that workplane. Of course, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to delete that. But here's another benefit of those workplanes. I want the hoop to be attached to the backboard. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click the hoop, and on the keyboard I'm going to hit the letter D as in dog. And what that will do, it's a drop command. When I do that, it drops this down, and now it is 100% guaranteed attached just how we want it. It's not lined up right, but it's attached, and we'll be good there. So to make this less messy, I'm going to take a workplane and I'm just going to drop it out of white space, and it'll go back to normal. Now we're going to go ahead and align these two. So I want to select everything, and I'm going to tilt this a bit just to show you. When I hit that align tool, I have align options for X, Y, and Z axes. Well, for this one, I don't want to move that up or down. I don't want to move it forward or backward because we just lined it up where we want it. The only thing I want to do is center it across that X-axis. So I'm just going to come in here to the center dot, click it. You should have something that looks exactly like this. And we're going to group this thing together so it becomes one piece. And what we should see is our 4 inches tall, 5 3/4 long here, and 3 1/4 deep. One last thing that's not really that important for it. It has no bearing on 3D printing or on laser cutting or anything, but just because you can go in and change colors and make these all sorts of things. If I wanted to have the different colors on both pieces, I could do multicolor, or if I want it transparent, and whatever color I want. But I like to go with kind of a wood color because we make this out of wood. That's just me. And at this point, the only thing left to do was you would copy the URL up here and make sure you get the whole thing. I would copy this. I would go into Classroom and I would add this as a link into my assignment and turn it in. Don't just put it as a comment. Actually do add and then link and paste it in. And do not forget to actually click Turn In on the assignment. And there you have it, folks. That is our basketball subassembly. And the steps you use for that, you'll be able to use to make a bunch of different projects in class.